Hi, everybody. My name is Leor Cohen, and I'm the Global Head of Music at YouTube and Google. I'm beyond humbled and thrilled to be here with all of you and our very special guest, Jon Bon Jovi. Welcome to Talks at Google. Self-reliance and optimism and community are the key concepts that define Jon Bon Jovi's music and charitable efforts. The frontman for the Grammy Award-winning band Bon Jovi has not only written and performed so many rock anthems, but he's also utilized the spotlight. He's raised millions of dollars to aid the working poor and the homeless and the hungry. And he's just an amazing, amazing dude. After selling over 130 million albums and performing all over the world. In fact, I've been in many of those countries with him. He's performed in front of over 40 million fans. The band was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm a board member. And he's also one of the Songwriter Hall of Fame members. Jon is the chairman of JBJ Soul Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing about positive change and helping those in need, one soul at a time. The foundation funds partnerships that addresses the issues of food and shelter. Since its inception in 2006, Jon Bon Jovi has provided over 700 units of affordable and supportive housing in over 11 states. Adding to those efforts is recently opened the Walter Reed Veterans Housing Facility, which opened in October of 2019, giving homes to 77 previously homeless veterans. How the hell could our veterans be homeless? Anyhow, he's been supporting them and supporting a lot of people. In October 11th, Jon and his wife, Dorothea, an unbelievable woman, and also a great friend of mine, opened the first Jon Bon Jovi Soul Kitchen nonprofit community restaurant in Red Bank, New Jersey. There they created pay what you can model that serves both in need and paying customers. There are no prices on the menu, and both the in need and the paying customers sit together in the same dining room. So everybody could have a hot, nutritious meal with dignity. It goes on and on and on. When Sandy happened, he was feeding people. He was on the front line. He's just an incredible, amazing, gifted artist that got lucky and keeps doing good things for people. And I'm glad that he's with us and that I could call him a dear friend of mine. So Jon, welcome to Google Talks. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm just curious, first and foremost, COVID happened. All I know is that you have to keep moving. Creativity is flowing through your veins. You're constantly making songs and recording and touring and doing things. How did you spend your COVID period? How did you remain positive and creative? And what kept you moving? What was the key ingredients, and what was your days looking like?
Well, my days were like everyone else's, in flux. The world as we knew it came to a standstill. Everybody was forced to hit the reset button. We were no different than the rest of the world. At that time, we were back in New Jersey. All my kids came home, and we hunkered down until we could determine what was going on here in the United States. And because of that uncertainty, you know, we all felt blessed, and we know several people who were contracting the COVID virus, and I know people that have lost their lives as a result. So we need to take it very seriously. But in that time, we also felt that the opportunity was there for us to help. And so we became essential as restaurateurs at the Soul Kitchen so that we could provide food for anyone in need. Our doors were shuttered. And as you know, the basis for the success of the Soul Kitchens is volunteerism. So we could no longer have volunteers. But what it allowed was for me to be there as the dishwasher, for Dorothea to be in the front of the house, you know, doing whatever it took to get the food out to the people in need. We had the chef and the sous chef preparing food. So we spent our days there helping people and our nights back at home with our own family. And for 2 months, I was the dishwasher 5 days a week at the Soul Kitchen Red Bank. So we kept ourselves very busy throughout this pandemic. You know, one thing led to another, whether it was there or as the need we realized was dire out on Eastern Long Island, where we funded and worked at a food bank that we created from scratch. And in 3 weeks, from conception at our kitchen table to delivering food to 7 pantries on Eastern Long Island, Dorothea and I, we formulated this concept that worked, and we were feeding, I don't know, I think it's around 25,000 people over the summer on Eastern Long Island. So it's been a very busy time too, but it was an opportunity to be involved in our community.
But I'm trying to figure out creativity and actually recording this record. You still have that beautiful studio? And is that where 2020 was recorded? And in your whole journey of feeding these people and trying to help people and getting hit by the pandemic, what songs on 2020 were inspired from you being the dishwasher, or Dorothea being in front of the, like beautiful, beautiful.
Let me give you the story. So in March of 2019, we went to Nashville to record what I believe to be the album. And in retrospect, it really was just the first batch of songs. But while we were down there, I had come up with the idea that the album title would be 2020. And I pitched it to the band and I said, well, you know, it's got dual meaning, and the tongue-in-cheek kind of approach is that, sure, it's an election year and this will be a cute bumper sticker, probably sell some t-shirts. There was a wryness to it. And then on another plane, it also meant 2020 clear vision. And after all that I've been through and the band have been through for the last 6, 7, 8 years now, we have clear vision again. And so with that in mind, we continued the process. But as events around us started to unfold, I had much more to write about. And so it became more of a topical record. Now, in March of 20, when I had turned it in to the label and was anticipating a first leg of a tour, which had already sold out in arenas, COVID crisis hits. The first thing I do is I cancel the tour outright, refund all the money, very aware that folks might need that cash for credit card bills and the rent. And I pull the record back. And the first thing that came out of washing dishes at the Soul Kitchen was, unbeknownst to me, my wife took that photograph and wanted to post it so that the in-need population would know when we would be at the kitchen. She was looking for a caption, and what I said was, if you can't do what you do what you can. The next day when I woke up, I went, well, there's a big old Bon Jovi song, so I wrote it, you know, and that came. And then shortly thereafter, with the death of George Floyd, maybe it was because the television was on 24/7. Maybe it was because the video was so clear. Maybe it was because I couldn't help but emotionally be involved when I saw this grown man crying out for his mom, and my eyes welled up with tears. I had to go in my room and grab my guitar and write. And I wrote American Reckoning. So then the album title was no longer the wry, cute bumper sticker, but it had a much different, deeper meaning. And it's a moment in time in which I just claim to be a witness to history. And so it's a very topical record, not a political record, but a topical record where, you know, where I like to start a conversation with this album. And I think that that's how it's being perceived out there now. It's been out for a couple of days.
Well, everybody, I mean, people are raving about it, Jon. I mean, I've been reading a lot of the reviews, and in fact, it's doing pretty good. It's trending. It's streaming. I was about to say it's selling, Jon, but it's streaming.
Yeah.
Which is really, really great news. My question to you is, how many of the original songs stayed, and how many new COVID moments populate the album?
Well, 4 of them were written after the Nashville sessions, and I would say another 4 on the album were certainly tweaked, if not completely rewritten, because like I'd said, everything had the opportunity to be even more specific. And whether it was rewriting Beautiful Drugs lyric in the verses outright, or tweaking verses in Brothers in Arms to be specific about places and time that I was at. So, you know, like I said, everything had the opportunity to be a page in the last year and a half's history, or at 2 years of history. There are songs like Blood in the Water, which, you know, I wrote about the administration. But even though the characters I was writing about 2 years ago, the names have changed, but the situation hasn't. You know, we see it constantly evolving. And again, I'm not taking sides, but I'm citing the obvious. There's always seemingly blood in the water around what's happening, you know, in DC at this time. So I made sure that all of this is timeless and classic and topical, and includes anyone and everyone that's living in this time.
It's a beautiful record.
Thank you.
And it rocks. And I remember when we first met. Remember, I was the rap guy, and I took over the label that you were recording for, and you turned in "It's My Life."
Yeah.
And we had a great time. We went all over the world. We had I was, you know, you actually was the first time that I witnessed a stadium rock show. It was in Ireland, and I remember it was raining. I mean, the raindrops were as big as the bottle of Fiji, and it was cold, but no one turned in their tickets. It was packed. And then all of a sudden there was lightning. I just couldn't believe it. It was just a magical time for me, and great memories. When do you think you're going to hit the road again?
The question is when will anyone hit the road again? That's why it was so important.
What's your guess? What's your guess?
Not before 22. And I can back that up with this reason. There were folks that were on the road at the time when it hit. There were folks like me who were intending to be on the road. There were guys that are planning to be on the road now if there had been this stoppage. Then you got to remember that, especially arena bands, there's sports teams that we have to get in the way, you know, get in our way. And so before any of this works itself out, you also have to have a vaccine. And most importantly, people, when they have disposable income again, have to be safe. You know, they're always going to take care of the band, and they're just, you know, that's going to be easy. I'm worried about little, you know, John and Jane that come to the show, that they're safe. And that's what's most important to me. So I can't see it happening on a scale that I'd be accustomed to for a year and a half.
But that's weird, Jon, because I don't think you've ever not performed for your fans who, you know, work really hard, save really hard, and are like desperate to go and to Giant Stadium or a stadium near them to you know, act a fool and share a communal moment with all the other fans. So This is really, 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 really strange times. And did you ever think of doing something digitally, or I don't know?
I mean, for what it's worth, I can share that we, in fact, had one opportunity through a radio chain to go into a secured soundstage to record for them for broadcast. And I agreed to do it, appreciating everything they've done for us, but also because I suggested that they leave us the cameras, the lights, the stage, so that I could capture one time the band in a room performing this new album in its entirety. And we did. So we're in the midst of editing that. But the big picture is, if I can't tour in a timely manner, I'll have something to share. I've done acoustic performances, you know, just off the cuff, and
yeah.
But I'll tell you what's missing. What's missing, and I thought I was the consummate pro and could perform in that situation, looking down a camera lens. What's missing is that contact. You know, I could sing for you all day right now, but who cares?
Hey. I may just request it, because there's a lot of people. Jen Rosen is on the line. You know, don't say you could sing all day.
I would be happy to sing, but the thing is that connection is missing. I don't get to see the people smiling back, and that hole is vast. You know, that's what's missing in these performances. You know, in the broadcast out of your bedrooms, that's what's missing.
Well, there's definitely the 2.0 version of digital live performance. Someone's going to break the code. Yeah, we'd like for you to break that code. You know, especially if you're talking 2022. I mean, the code's got to be broken. You cannot. It's like a public service. Stay at home and not get on that stage somehow. I don't know. There's got to be something that we could do.
I hope I'm proven wrong.
You're the father of grown-up children. How did they cope staying out of COVID and being around you and Dorothea all the time?
The big ones, you know, they hung in there for about a month, and then they decided to make a run for it and said, you know, we'll take our chances back in the city.
Are they allowed to come back?
I have to admit that I allowed him to come back. And Jesse, our eldest son, he was really hyper vigilant. He said, I can't come and hug you. I can't. And I honestly just remember thinking, if I'm going to die because I hugged my son, I'll take that chance. You know, and it was selfish of me, but I couldn't help it. I hadn't seen him, and I love my kids. So I did what I did. You know, and I knew what was going on, but I did. The younger guys were with us the whole time. And our middle son of the 4 kids, he had graduated high school, and much like every other kid in the world that graduated high school and college this year, you know, their lives were very different, and there was no prom and no graduation. And then they go off and they go to college, and they're freshmen, and they're missing that whole rah-rah experience, and they're Zooming from some dorm room somewhere. And it's really tough. It's a shame. And, you know, then it's compounded by all the folks that are furloughed or have lost their jobs, and we haven't seen any of the economic turmoil yet. You know, so there's a lot of uncertainty. And on the other hand, because you know me a long time, I'm trying to find the optimism in this, and I think that generation of those kids that graduated high schools and colleges, they're going to be the innovators, the creators, the ones that get over political party and sexual orientation and religious beliefs. You know, they're the ones that are going to realize that they've got to save the planet from old white guys like us that messed it up for them.
I'm going to go off script, John. God, I hope I don't get in trouble. So TikTok. TikTok did something recently, and Fleetwood Mac is having a moment. Have you felt it? Have you felt that moment?
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on that?
I didn't know anything about it, obviously, right? It's for the younger generation. And again, my kids were home, and so they got me with our Hampton Water wine into this TikTok thing. And I said, oh, nobody's going to want to see me on this. And so we did a little Hampton Water concert. And of course, I thought people would watch the music, but what came of it after was his pouring this glass of Hampton water, 4 million people overnight. I was like, wow, look at the reach of this thing. So I find it great that Fleetwood Mac's having a moment, because like they said, the first time listener of that song, you know, there's a whole generation finding more great music. And that's the beautiful thing about what you can offer and YouTube offer. And that to me, and Google Music offered, was that, you know, it's the new generation can hear great music.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we've had incredible moments. You know, we brought the Zeppelin concerts. We brought a bunch of Pink Floyd concerts, never seen before, to YouTube. Shout out to Darren and the team who sourced this. You know, all of a sudden, you know, there's been a lot of archives being emptied and brought out of the safe. So there is some certain optimism. And you know, what's interesting, what's exploding the most for us is our living room. Watching these concerts, not on their laptop or on their phones, but inside their living room with some real excellent sound. And there's been some real magical moments, and the watch time in living room is just exploding. And you know, you see YouTube TV watching the finals right now. Thank God for the Heat. You know, taking it an additional game. I was worried about a sweep. You know, so you're taking care of your kids. You're an amazing musician and wonderful performer, incredible. You have any issues? Any problems? Any like
I can't dunk. I can't dunk. LeBron's not going to be counting on me anytime soon. So sorry. You know, I just do what I do, bro. You've known me a long, long time. And when you were the head of the label, and, you know, we had a lot of great records together, and Have a Nice Day and Crush and Bounce. And, you know, I just try really hard to be honest in our craft and try to speak the truth through our music. And, you know, fortunately for us, we've hit a second generation of people that some that are old enough to tell their kids about us, and now their kids listen to it. So it's been fascinating to be able to do the job that I dreamt of doing as a boy, and I get to do as a man, and to be able to still make new records. It's a dream.
Is it harder these days to do new records?
No, because like I said, I found being the voyeur and writing a topical record to be refreshing. Now, I wouldn't want to chase what's, you know, the midst of pop's music scene or the chart, because it wouldn't ring true. You know, we would have this conversation, you and I, 20 years ago, you know, and you would always say, just be true to who you are. Don't worry about what's happening in pop or hip hop. And I couldn't agree more. You know, growing up, that's natural. Again, look, my hair has turned gray, for God's sake. So is yours. You know, we've been doing this for a long time.
You got hair. You got hair.
I got a full head of hair.
Come on.
Yeah.
Thank God for small things.
The big picture there is, you know, if you just do it and it's honest and true, then people will understand that and appreciate it for what it is. And that's what I've always tried to do and only tried to do. And so, you know, the journey continues.
I love this journey because you're inclusive and you're making a lot of people happy. And, you know, when I was rambling on talking about what a great husband you are, shout out to Dorothea. I hope she's tuning in. And it's just fascinating to me. But what's interesting to me as well is you travel all over the world. So it's not, you know, your like performance area is not Pittsburgh, St. Louis, San Francisco. It's Bangkok, Dublin, Moscow, Cape Town. It's everywhere. So how do you actually have the ability to set up all these charities and do all this good work? You know, I don't understand the capacity. That's what I guess I'm not trying to do. I guess you don't work out. Something's got to give. Seriously, what's going on here?
Nothing much, Like I told you, you know, when it comes from that pure place like the foundation, which we started some 15 years ago, that's second only to the music that we try to make. And it means that much to Dorothea and to myself and to the guys that are and gals on our board. Traveling the globe, it's not the same priority it was for me that it was throughout the course of our tenure together or even before then.
And that's a problem, John, for all these international folks that are on. You know, this is a global company. We've got people tuning in from Japan to Singapore to India. Come on, man. Don't say it's not a priority.
Bon Jovi records. They listen to Bon Jovi records and they come and see it live. You know, but it's been a year now that I haven't been on the road because of COVID and the recording of the record. And like I said, it's going to be quite a while before we can do it again. But the beautiful thing about having done it the way we have for as long as we have, it didn't matter what language you spoke. It didn't matter your political beliefs. Music is communication, and it transcends boundaries. And I remember when we would go to a place like the Soviet Union, and I mean, it was the Soviet Union in the late 80s, to going back to the same stadium the same month, 30 years later. The connection was still there. We played it last summer, and I'm playing in the same stadium, and I was doing some press beforehand. And there was a reporter, and I said, you know, in 89, I came here and no one knew our records, and I had to coerce a Russian soldier to give me his uniform, and I took it off like a striptease, and I jumped on the stage, and I broke into the first song, and we won the night. And when I told this story, I thought that the reporter would think I was full of it, and he finished the story for me. He says, oh, you don't understand. That was folklore in the Soviet Union and even now in Russia. So that connection of music around this globe, especially the export of rock and roll music, it has transcended everything you know. You know, when I went to Israel, which I know your ties to Israel. When I went the first time, I'd been given a hard time about going, but I said, oh,
yeah,
no,
thank God you didn't listen. Thank God you didn't listen to that clown.
I would not listen to anybody because all I cared about was the pure love of performing for people. Mm-hmm. And we went and we performed for the Israeli people, and I loved it. And we went back again. And that connection was there, and they know the songs, and they believe in the lyric. And it brings Israeli people and people from different walks of life and different religions together. That's what music does. And I've been blessed to have had just a little, glimpse into what that is for so many great artists.
Yeah, I always dreamt of, when you spoke to some British people over the last 5 years, they identified themselves as a Remainer or a Leaver. And I wanted to do a commercial that you have a Remainer and a Leaver at least agree that Jimmy Page is a rock god. So more about what brings them together than separates them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what music does. And you just keep doing what you're doing. Listen, I think it's we're getting overwhelming response. This MacBook is starting to smoke on me right now. So I think it's important that we turn it over to some questions before they actually try to Google where you live and come and ask personal questions. Okay, so let's, hi Grace. What made you choose to focus on feeding people as a way to give to the community? Thanks, Grace.
Grace, thank you for that. When I started thinking of having a foundation, it was around the guise of something called arena football. But that's not the point. The point is that when we started it, we were all things to everybody. And we were Robin Hood. If you needed pencils, we brought you pencils. If you needed lunch, we brought you lunch. One night while I was in Philadelphia and I was looking out of a hotel room window, there was a homeless man sleeping on a grate in front of City Hall. And having been a history buff, I was looking at the statue of William Penn up high above me, and I saw this man sleeping below me, and I thought, that's not what our forefathers were thinking. But with that came the focus of realizing that hunger and homelessness were two things that didn't need a scientist to find the cure. All it needed was going to be some sweat equity and a little bit of money. Happened for me that the Michael Jordan of the homeless issue is a lady who is a nun, a sister of mercy by the name of Sister Mary Scullion, who has since now served on our board for all these years, but she taught us everything we know. And Sister Mary really is an expert in the field, and we hit it off. And so that to me was something that I knew that we could have just a little ripple effect. But more importantly, when I put $1 down, I didn't have to just rely on the science and hope it happened. We could affect change directly. And that's what we've been doing.
All right, let's get a next question. Jillian, what's going on? How has the evolution of the music industry led you to evolve personally as a band? Thank you.
That's a good one. It certainly has changed. Remember, in the prehistoric ages when we got a record deal, there was no such thing as a mobile telephone. There was no such thing as the internet. So we had to rely on 24-track analog recorders and making a record where nothing could be auto-tuned, and you had to write a song. And usually it was, within the confines of that room that you wrote said song. Everything has happened since. The invention called the CD was one huge one. MTV came to be during our tenure. Streaming is now something that records, this is the first, what I still call records, that I didn't have a box to give to my friends and relatives and say, here, play this in the car on the way home, because nobody has a CD player any longer. They're streaming everything. The entire world that I knew has changed. We won't have a #1 record on the pop charts for the first time in a long time. And that's because it's a different model. I'm not distraught by that. You have to roll with the changes. And I could tell you this too. I remember a conversation in a press line one day, some 10 years ago. And someone said, rock and roll is dead. And I said, no, it's not. I said, as a matter of fact, I'll argue that rock and roll is so alive and well because it's not beholden to terrestrial radio any longer. The chance for the next Bob Dylan, who may not have the voice for pop radio but can be as influential, is there because of the internet. He's there because of direct streaming. And so the opportunity for cultural changes exists thanks to technology. And all the next generation have to do is embrace it. And they'll embrace it better than I. I've been with the same blessed record company for 37 years, and I'm ecstatic that I still am with Island Records and Universal. But that's for me. The next generation's kid, they've got the opportunity to create their own thing. Hip hop created its own thing some 30 plus years ago. That chance is there for the next generation. I believe in that.
Amazing. But hold on, John. There's a whole group of whole generation of rock and rollers that are not happy with how the world has changed. So it's really great to hear your perspective. But your cup has been overflowing all the time. It's never been half full, half empty. You've always, you loved the change, you enjoyed the change because you always knew you're going to rock that stage, and you're always going to make continue to make music, and you know it's a beautiful thing. So bravo to you. What's the next question? Thomas, I'm young enough that I grew up with my parents who were fans of yours when they were my age. How has knowing that new generations of fans are listening to your music influenced by your songwriting? What a great question.
That's humbling, Thomas, and I thank you, and I thank your parents. You know, when our parents were young, if they played me, and I remember my mother playing me Gene Autry and Loretta Lynn and country stuff, and me just like rolling my eyes and putting my fingers in my ear, I wasn't interested. So when they played a Beatle record, and I perked up and I thought maybe there's a connection between us. You know, now rock and roll has taken generations of parents who seem like they're not hip and turned their kids onto rock and roll music. And there's a whole generation of parents who grew up with, you know, rap and R&B and country music too. Music has become that much more and more and more and more a part of everybody's life. If you can imagine back in 56 or 63 when the Beatles came, or 56 when Elvis came, you know, you weren't going to have President Eisenhower bragging up Elvis. You weren't going to have President Kennedy bragging up the Beatles, but you were going to have someday a President Clinton talking about Fleetwood Mac as his theme song, and a President Obama sharing his playlists with you. You know, yeah. that's incredible. You know, the great world leaders are listening to the pop culture as we know it.
So should we take a few more questions? Is that
Please.
Okay with you, John?
I'd love to, yeah.
All right, Benjamin. I wish I knew where everybody was from, but anyhow, how long? Long time fan here, John. Been living on a prayer since March, wondering if over such a long career, Jon Bon Jovi's song creation process has changed. Is it easier? Has age helped with inspiration?
Thanks, Benjamin. I think that the ability to write songs only got easier, and that was just because of life experience, compounded by the fact that I've just done it longer. Writing songs, like I've said many times, is a work in process. What I mean by that is every day is an opportunity to write a song if you're open with your eyes and your ears to what's going on around you. And it's whether or not you want to turn your sensory perception on, because if it's on 24/7, truthfully, it's exhausting. But like with a record like 2020, because I chose to be witness to history and nothing more, not to write a pop song, a boy-girl song, a buddy song, it just didn't have much interest to me at this time. So I found another venue, you know, and being the witness, being the narrator, it opened up another channel for me, and I'm enjoying it immensely. But that'll be for this moment in time. Next time I'll find something else, and that's what songwriting is, bud.
Jen, I will never forget how you gave me backstage pass and a photo of both of us with big hair, so I would stop getting bullied in school. Thank you for all you did for me that one day at the Spectrum. Oh, that you're a Philly girl. We know where you're from. Oh, you could have traveled. You could have traveled.
Wow, that's sweet. That's very kind. I'm happy that a story like that happened, that I could just, you know, an act of kindness. That's one of the things about what's going on in the crazy world we're living in. People say, how can I make a difference? What can I do? I'm just little Johnny at home. I can't do anything. And the difference is an act of kindness, something as simple as taking a picture with somebody, in essence, smiling at a stranger, really can make a huge difference. That's what brings us all together. It's these little acts of kindness. in such a divisive world, we got to remember that an act of kindness can change the course of history.
Thank you. This is Jen Rosen, who I work intimately with, who's, we have to get on a three-way and for you to shout her out. So get ready for that call. If you had to choose between songwriting and performing, by the way, she's runs our publishing business. So what would you choose? What would you choose and why?
Well, it'll sound like I'm pandering, but in truth, it would be songwriting. I've been a performer my whole life, and truthfully, the band have been pretty good at it. But to me, writing a song is the closest that any of us will ever get to immortality. And if you write a song and are lucky enough to make a living, amen. But the same thing I'll say to the kid that's home right now writing a song that hasn't been published, write it, because it'll be here forever. Take your time, get it right. You know, just enjoy the process. But having it, holding it, knowing that you did it, it'll be with us forever.
You know, John, I think a lot of people were surprised when I took this gig. And I took this gig in many ways because I wanted to help the music business and Google and YouTube get to know one another better and have a healthier and more productive relationship with one another. It's been fascinating, and I've been able to get a glimpse at the hearts of the leaders that run this company. And all I could tell you is that they really want to do good. The effort that we're making internally in the whole racial equality and dealing with the systemic racism that's happened in America is something that's super important in terms of helping inform and bring to the public real information of what's happening. And I appreciate the fact that you have spent your afternoon with us. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to everybody else. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I can't thank you all enough. Thanks for your support, your friendship. We've been through a lot together as you ran the label for all those years and believed in what it is that we do. But, you know, to that next generation that are watching this and are trying to make music or chase your dreams, whatever they may be, you know, have a great journey, enjoy it, and know that great things can happen. And I appreciate the time, brother. It's great to see you as always.
Thank you. Blessings to you, your family, and all the mission that you're on. Okay?
Thanks, pal. Yeah.
Bye-bye.